Clay spattered against the wall of the studio as Jade Wilson demonstrated how to center a lump of clay on the pottery wheel. Her students, 6 children aged 8 to 12, watched with rapt attention as her slender fingers expertly shaped the spinning mass. Teaching Saturday morning pottery classes at the Oak Ridge Community Arts Center had become the highlight of her week, a welcome respite from the financial struggles of running her small ceramic studio downtown. "Remember," she said, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear, "pottery is about patience. The clay will tell you what it wants to become if you listen carefully enough." A small hand shot up from the back of the class. "Miss Jade, mine keeps wobbling." Jade smiled at 10-year-old Sophie, a quiet girl with intelligent eyes who had joined the class 3 weeks ago. "Let me help you, sweetie." As Jade approached Sophie's wheel, the studio door swung open. A tall man with broad shoulders filled the doorframe, his presence immediately commanding attention. His dark hair was slightly windswept, and despite his casual attire, dark jeans and a simple button-down rolled at the sleeves, something about him seemed distinctly out of place in the humble community center. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his deep voice resonating through the studio. Traffic was a nightmare. Sophie's face lit up. "Dad," Jade felt a flutter of curiosity as she looked between father and daughter. While Sophie was quiet and reserved, there was an undeniable resemblance, the same expressive hazel eyes and determined set of the jaw. "You must be Sophie's father," Jade said, wiping her hands on her clay-smeared apron. "I'm Jade Wilson, the instructor." "Lucas Lawrence," he replied, extending a hand. "I usually send my assistant to drop Sophie off, but I wanted to see what's been captivating my daughter every Saturday." His handshake was firm, warm. "She talks about pottery nonstop now." Jade felt a hint of pride. "Sophie has a natural talent. She's been making remarkable progress." Lucas glanced around the modest studio with its mismatched wheels and worn shelves lined with student projects. His gaze was assessing, curious rather than judgmental. "Dad, can Miss Jade show you what I made last week?" Sophie asked, tugging at her father's sleeve. "I'd love to see it," Lucas replied, his expression softening when he looked at his daughter. Jade led them to a shelf where several small, uneven bowls were drying. "This one's Sophie's," she said, carefully lifting a blue-glazed piece. "She designed the pattern herself." Sophie beamed with pride as Lucas examined the bowl. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," he said with genuine admiration. Then, to Jade, "Thank you for nurturing her creativity. It means a lot." "That's what I'm here for," Jade replied, feeling an unexpected warmth spread through her chest at the sincerity in his voice. "Would you like to stay and watch the rest of today's class? We're learning how to throw cylinders, the foundation for mugs and vases." Lucas checked his watch, an understated but clearly expensive timepiece that Jade couldn't help noticing. "I have some time," he said, "if it won't disrupt the class." "Not at all." "Parents are always welcome," Jade assured him, suddenly very aware of the clay under her fingernails and the messy bun she'd hastily secured that morning. As she returned to the front of the class, Jade felt Lucas's gaze following her. She pushed aside the flutter of awareness and focused on her students. "All right, everyone, let's see those cylinders taking shape." Lucas leaned against the back wall, watching as Jade moved from student to student, offering encouragement and gentle corrections. He was struck by her patience, the way she knelt at each child's level, speaking softly but clearly. When Sophie's clay collapsed for the 3rd time, Jade's response was immediate. "That happens to everyone, even professional potters," she assured Sophie, who looked close to tears. "Let me show you a trick." Jade retrieved a fresh lump of clay and sat at Sophie's wheel. "When I was learning, I ruined more pieces than I can count. My teacher said that every collapsed pot teaches you something new. As her hands worked the clay, transforming it from a shapeless mass into a perfect cylinder, Lucas found himself captivated. There was something mesmerizing about her movements, confident, graceful, almost like a dance between her and the material. Sophie's frustration gave way to renewed determination as Jade guided her hands on a fresh piece of clay. "That's it," Jade encouraged. "Feel how the clay moves with you. You're getting it." When class ended, the other parents arrived to collect their children, but Lucas lingered, helping Sophie wrap her still wet cylinder in plastic. "Will you be joining us again next week, Mr. Lawrence?" Jade asked as she wiped down the wheels. "Lucas, please," he corrected with a smile that transformed his serious face. "And yes, I think I will. This has been educational." Something in his tone made Jade look up sharply. Was he mocking her modest studio? But the expression on his face was genuine, almost wistful. "Sophie talks about you constantly, you know," he said, his voice lower. "It's Miss Jade says this and Miss Jade showed us that. You've made quite an impression." Jade felt her cheeks warm. "She's a wonderful student, very thoughtful about her work." "She gets that from her mother," Lucas said, a shadow crossing his features. Anna was an artist to a painter. The past tense wasn't lost on Jade. "Was?" she asked gently. "She passed away 4 years ago, cancer." The words were simple, delivered without dramatic flourish, but the pain behind them was evident. "I'm so sorry," Jade said, meaning it. "Sophie never mentioned." "She doesn't talk about it much," Lucas replied, helping Sophie into her coat. "That's why this," he gestured to the studio, "means so much. It's the first creative thing she's shown interest in since." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Jade understood the weight of what he was saying, the trust he was placing in her as Sophie's instructor. "Thank you for telling me," Jade said quietly. "I'll make sure she continues to enjoy pottery. No pressure, just exploration." Lucas nodded, seeming relieved. "We'd better get going. Sophie has piano lessons this afternoon." He reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. "My direct number in case you need to reach me about anything regarding Sophie." Jade accepted the card, noting the minimalist design with just his name, phone number, and the logo for Lawrence Investments in the corner. "See you next Saturday, Miss Jade," Sophie called as they left. "Looking forward to it," Jade replied, waving goodbye. After they'd gone, Jade examined the business card more closely. Lawrence Investments. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but Jade couldn't place it. Probably some financial firm downtown, she thought, tucking the card into her pocket. She had more pressing concerns, like how she was going to make rent on her small studio space next month if enrollment in her adult evening classes didn't improve. As she locked up the community center, Jade pushed thoughts of the intriguing father-daughter duo aside. Lucas Lawrence was just another parent, albeit one who seemed genuinely interested in his daughter's development. Nothing more, she told herself firmly, ignoring the lingering memory of his smile. Jade's apartment was a small one-bedroom above a bookstore in downtown Oak Ridge. The space was cramped but cozy, filled with her ceramic creations and plants that thrived despite her occasionally neglectful care. After a quick shower to wash away the clay residue, she settled at her kitchen table with her laptop, reviewing her studio's finances. The numbers weren't encouraging. While her community classes brought in steady income, her real passion, her own ceramic art, and the small studio space where she taught adult classes and created her pieces, was struggling. A recent rent increase threatened to push her business into the red. Jade sighed, running a hand through her damp hair. She'd have to increase class sizes or raise prices. Neither option appealed to her. The whole point of JW Ceramics was to make pottery accessible, to share her love of clay with others without the prohibitive costs she'd encountered in her own training. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend, Mia. "How was kids' class? Any more helicopter parents?" Jade smiled as she typed her response. "One new dad, actually. Sophie's father seemed genuinely interested in what she was learning. Refreshing change." Mia's reply was immediate. "Single dad. Cute." Jade rolled her eyes. "Not relevant. Besides, he's a client." "Student's parent not equal to client." "Details, please." Jade hesitated, then replied. "Tall, dark hair, nice smile when he bothers to use it. Widower with a sweet daughter, end of story." "Sounds promising. When will you see him again?" "Next Saturday, probably. But only as Sophie's teacher." "Now stop matchmaking and help me figure out how to save my studio." The conversation shifted to business strategies, but Jade found her thoughts drifting back to Lucas Lawrence and the gentle way he'd listened to his daughter describe her pottery projects. There had been something compelling about his quiet intensity and the vulnerability he'd shown when mentioning his late wife. Jade shook her head, dismissing the thought. The last thing she needed was to develop an inappropriate crush on a student's parent. Besides, men like Lucas polished, obviously successful businessmen weren't exactly lining up to date struggling artists. Monday morning found Jade at her downtown studio, preparing for an advanced wheel-throwing class. She just finished setting up the 6 wheels when her landlord, Mr. Harrigan, knocked on the glass door. "Got a minute, Jade?" he asked, his expression forecasting unpleasant news. Jade's stomach nodded. "Of course, Mr. Harrigan. What can I do for you?" The elderly man shifted uncomfortably. "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the building's been sold. New owners taking possession next month." Jade felt the blood drain from her face. "What does that mean for my lease?" "They're honoring existing contracts until they expire," Mr. Harrigan explained. "But yours is up for renewal in 60 days. I can't guarantee what'll happen then." "You know who bought it? Maybe I could talk to them about extending." "Some investment group," Mr. Harrigan interrupted. "Lawrence something. These big companies, they buy up properties, renovate, then jack up the rents. Been happening all over downtown." Jade froze. "Lawrence Investments," Mr. Harrigan brightened. "That's it, you know them." "No," Jade said quickly. "Just heard the name." After Mr. Harrigan left, Jade sank onto a stool, her mind racing. Lawrence Investments. The same company on Lucas's business card. It had to be a coincidence. Downtown Oak Ridge was experiencing a revitalization boom. Dozens of investment firms were snatching up properties. But as her students began arriving, Jade couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. What if it wasn't a coincidence? What if Sophie's father was the very man threatening her livelihood? "Breathe," she muttered to herself. "You're jumping to conclusions." Still, as she guided her students through creating lidded jars, Jade resolved to do some research. If Lucas Lawrence was indeed connected to the company buying her building, she needed to know exactly what she was dealing with. That evening, after closing the studio, Jade sat at her laptop and searched Lawrence Investments Oak Ridge. The results made her heart sink. Lawrence Investments was indeed a property development and investment firm, with Lucas Lawrence as its founder and CEO. The company website featured a professional photo of him in a tailored suit, a far cry from the casual dad who'd visited her pottery class, but unmistakably the same man. According to several business articles, Lawrence Investments had been aggressively expanding its real estate portfolio in Oak Ridge's Arts District, converting older buildings into luxury apartments and high-end retail spaces. "Great," Jade muttered. "Just great." She clicked through photos of ribbon-cutting ceremonies and charity galas, seeing Lucas standing alongside city officials and business leaders. One image showed him with Sophie at a hospital fundraiser, the caption noting his seven-figure donation to the pediatric oncology wing, the same wing that had likely treated his late wife. Jade sat back, conflicted. On one hand, Lucas Lawrence was clearly a wealthy businessman whose company might very well force her out of her beloved studio space. On the other hand, he was also a grieving widower raising a daughter alone, who supported health care and seemed to genuinely care about Sophie's artistic development. "Complicated much," she muttered, closing her laptop. The question now was what to do with this information. Confront him at the next pottery class. That hardly seemed appropriate with children present. Contact his company directly, as what a soon-to-be displaced tenant pleading her case. Jade decided to wait. She needed more information before making any moves, and jumping to accusations without confirmation would be foolish. Besides, there was always the possibility that the Lawrence investments buying her building had nothing to do with Sophie's father. But deep down, Jade knew better. Downtown Oak Ridge wasn't that big, and coincidences like this were rare. Saturday couldn't come quickly enough. All week, Jade had rehearsed different approaches for speaking with Lucas, assuming he showed up again. She'd finally settled on a direct but non-confrontational question, asked privately after class. When Sophie arrived, however, she was accompanied by a stylish woman in her 40s who introduced herself as Vanessa, Lucas's assistant. "Mr. Lawrence sends his apologies," Vanessa explained. "An urgent business matter came up. He asked me to let you know he'll pick Sophie up himself after class." Disappointment warred with relief in Jade's chest. On one hand, the confrontation was delayed. On the other, she'd been psyching herself up all week. "No problem," Jade said, helping Sophie into her apron. "We're creating animal sculptures today, so he'll have some interesting art to look forward to." The class flew by, with the children enthusiastically crafting clay creatures ranging from realistic to fantastical. Sophie worked diligently on a detailed elephant, her brow furrowed in concentration as she shaped the trunk. "My dad has a collection of carved elephants from his travels," she explained when Jade complimented her work. "He says they represent strength and wisdom." "That's right," Jade agreed. "In many cultures, elephants are also symbols of good luck. We could use some," Sophie said quietly. "Dad's been working really hard lately. He looks tired all the time." Jade felt a twinge of guilt for her planned confrontation. Whatever Lucas Lawrence did for a living, even if it threatened her studio, he was still a father trying to provide for his child. "All parents work hard for their children," Jade said gently. "It's because they love you so much." Sophie nodded solemnly. "I know. Sometimes I pretend Mom is watching us. That helps Dad smile more." Jade's heart constricted. "That's a beautiful thought, Sophie. I bet it does help him." As predicted, Lucas arrived precisely at noon to collect Sophie. Today, he looked every inch the successful businessman in dark trousers and a light blue dress shirt that emphasized his broad shoulders. Despite the more formal attire, he seemed slightly harried, checking his phone even as he greeted his daughter. "Miss Jade, look what I made." Sophie exclaimed, presenting her clay elephant to her father. Lucas tucked his phone away, giving Sophie his full attention. "That's incredible, Soph. The detail on the trunk is amazing." He looked up at Jade. "She's really improving." "She's a dedicated artist," Jade agreed. She hesitated, then added, "Mr. Lawrence, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "Of course. Sophie, why don't you pack up your things?" As Sophie busied herself, Jade led Lucas to the supply closet at the back of the studio. "I'll be direct," she said quietly. "I recently learned that Lawrence Investments purchased the building where I run my ceramics studio. Is that your company?" Lucas's expression shifted from confusion to recognition. "You're in the Marshall Building on Pine Street." "Yes," Jade confirmed, heart sinking. "My lease is up in 2 months, and I've been told the new owners might have different plans for the space." Lucas ran a hand through his hair, a surprisingly vulnerable gesture from someone who otherwise appeared so composed. "I wasn't aware you had a connection to that property. Lawrence Investments does own several buildings in the Arts District, including the Marshall Building, but I'm not personally involved in the day-to-day management decisions." "But you are the CEO," Jade pressed. "I am," he acknowledged. "Look, I understand your concern. Rental properties changing hands can be unsettling for tenants. Why don't you give me your contact information, and I'll look into your situation personally?" Jade wasn't sure what she'd expected, denial, perhaps, or corporate stonewalling, but his reasonable response threw her off balance. "That would be helpful, thank you." Lucas pulled out his phone. "What's the name of your studio?" "JW Ceramics," Jade replied. "I've been there 3 years." He nodded, typing the information. "I've got a meeting in 15 minutes, but I'll review your file early next week. In the meantime, try not to worry." Easy for him to say, Jade thought. He wasn't facing the potential loss of his livelihood and passion. "Dad, I'm ready." Sophie called, holding her backpack and clay elephant carefully. "Coming, sweetheart," Lucas replied. To Jade, he added in a lower voice, "I really will look into this. I'm not in the business of displacing passionate artists, especially ones who have made such a difference for my daughter." As they left, Jade wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or more anxious. Lucas had been polite, even sympathetic, but she'd been in business long enough to know that sentiment rarely trumped profit margins. 3 days later, Jade was demonstrating glaze application to an evening class when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Miss Wilson, this is Lucas Lawrence. I've reviewed your lease situation. Are you available to discuss it over coffee tomorrow? There's a cafe near your studio, Riverside Roasters, that I frequent when I'm in the area. Would 9 a.m. work?" Jade stared at the message, her stomach fluttering with a mixture of hope and dread. Was this good news, or was he planning to deliver the eviction notice personally? "Everything okay, Jade?" asked one of her students, noticing her distraction. "Fine," Jade replied, tucking her phone away. "Just business matters. Now let's talk about layering glazes for special effects." After class, she replied to Lucas's text. 9 a.m. works. See you there." That night, Jade barely slept, her mind cycling through scenarios from best case, extended lease at current rate, to worst, immediate eviction. By morning, she was running on caffeine and nerves, having changed outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a burgundy sweater that looked professional without being stuffy. Riverside Roasters was already busy when she arrived, the morning crowd a mix of business people and remote workers setting up laptops. Jade spotted Lucas immediately, seated at a corner table with 2 coffee cups already waiting. "I hope you don't mind," he said as she approached. "I took the liberty of ordering you a latte. The barista said it's your usual." "Thank you," Jade replied, surprised that he'd bothered to ask. She slid into the seat opposite him, noting that today he looked fully the part of CEO in a charcoal suit and slate blue tie. "I appreciate you taking the time to meet. It's the least I could do after learning about the connection," Lucas said. "I've spent the last few days looking into your situation specifically. JW Ceramics has an impressive community presence for a relatively young business." Jade wasn't sure how to respond to what sounded like a compliment. "It's been a labor of love. That's why the possibility of losing my space is so concerning." Lucas nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I understand." The Marshall Building was part of a portfolio acquisition, one of several properties we purchased as a package deal. Our typical strategy is to renovate and update older buildings to maximize their potential. Jade's heart sank. This sounded like the preamble to bad news. However, Lucas continued, I believe there's room in our business model for supporting the arts community that makes downtown Oak Ridge special. He slid a folder across the table. This is a draft proposal for the Marshall Building. You'll see that we're planning to maintain the first floor as studio and gallery spaces, with residential units on the upper floors. I'd like to offer JW Ceramics an extended lease 3 years, with an option to renew at your current rate. Jade blinked, sure she'd misheard. You're not raising the rent. Not for the first year, Lucas clarified. There's a modest increase in years 2 and 3 outlined on page 3 to account for property improvements we'll be making, but it's well below market rate for the area. Jade opened the folder with trembling fingers, scanning the document within. It was exactly as he described, a generous offer that would allow her business to remain stable while the building underwent renovations around her. Why? She asked bluntly, looking up. This can't be standard procedure for your company. Lucas took a sip of his coffee before answering. It's not. But after seeing your work with the children, including my daughter, I did some research on JW Ceramics. Your adult education programs, your community outreach, the scholarship spots you reserve for low-income students, it's impressive. Businesses like yours are the cultural heartbeat of neighborhoods like the Arts District. He hesitated, then added more quietly, and frankly, Sophie would be devastated if her pottery teacher suddenly disappeared. She's had enough abrupt losses in her life. The reference to his late wife hung in the air between them, adding an unexpected layer of emotional complexity to what Jade had assumed would be a purely business discussion. I don't know what to say, Jade admitted. This is much more generous than I expected. Say you'll accept, Lucas replied, a hint of a smile softening his professional demeanor. The paperwork is ready whenever you are, and perhaps he broke off as his phone buzzed insistently. I'm sorry, he said, checking the screen. I need to take this. Business emergency. As Lucas stepped away to take the call, Jade reviewed the proposal more thoroughly. It was legitimate, better than legitimate. It was a lifeline for her struggling business. The question was, why would Lucas Lawrence, millionaire property developer, go out of his way to accommodate one small ceramic studio? Was it really just for Sophie's benefit? Or was there something else motivating his generosity? Lucas returned, looking apologetic. I'm afraid I need to cut our meeting short. There's a situation at one of our development sites that requires my immediate attention. Of course, Jade said, gathering her things. Thank you for this. It's more than fair. I'm glad you think so. He hesitated, then asked, would it be inappropriate to ask if you ever teach private lessons? Sophie's birthday is coming up, and I was thinking a father-daughter pottery session might be something special. The request caught Jade off guard. I do offer private lessons, yes. Though they're usually at my studio. We have a space at home that would work, Lucas suggested. I'd compensate you well for your time and the inconvenience of traveling. Jade considered the offer. A private lesson would be good money, and she was curious to see how Lucas and Sophie interacted outside the community center setting. I think that could be arranged, she said finally. When is her birthday? 2 weeks from Saturday, Lucas replied. Would that work? Say 2 p.m. That should be fine, Jade agreed. I'll need to bring some supplies, a portable wheel, clay, tools. I'll have someone help you transport everything, Lucas offered, and I'll text you the address. It's a bit outside town. They parted with a handshake that lingered just a moment longer than necessary, sending an unexpected tingle up Jade's arm. As she watched him stride away, phone already at his ear, she wondered what exactly she was getting herself into. The address Lucas texted later that day turned out to be for a property in the exclusive Ridgeview Estates, a gated community of multi-million-dollar homes nestled in the hills overlooking Oak Ridge. Jade felt a flutter of nerves as she realized just how wealthy Lucas Lawrence actually was. The space at home he'd mentioned so casually was likely larger than her entire apartment. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. With the lease situation resolved, Jade threw herself into planning Sophie's private birthday lesson, ordering special clay and tools, and designing a project that both father and daughter could enjoy regardless of skill level. She tried not to dwell on the anticipation she felt whenever she thought about seeing Lucas again, an anticipation that had nothing to do with professional courtesy, and everything to do with the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled at his daughter. On the appointed Saturday, Jade loaded her equipment into her ancient Honda Civic and set off for Ridgeview Estates. The security guard at the entrance checked her name against a list, then directed her up a winding road lined with manicured lawns and impressive homes. Lucas's house, or rather, mansion, sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a modern structure of glass and stone that seemed to grow organically from the hillside. As Jade pulled into the circular driveway, she felt distinctly out of place in her clay-stained teaching clothes and beat-up car. Before she could even exit her vehicle, the front door opened and Sophie came bounding out, followed more sedately by Lucas. "Miss Jade," Sophie called, practically bouncing with excitement. "Dad said you're going to teach us both today." "That's the plan," Jade confirmed, smiling at the girl's enthusiasm. "Happy birthday, Sophie." Lucas approached, dressed more casually than Jade had ever seen him, in jeans and a soft-looking Henley that emphasized his athletic build. "Thank you for coming. Let me help with your equipment." "That would be great," Jade said, popping her trunk to reveal the portable wheel and supplies. "It's heavier than it looks." Lucas lifted the wheel with ease, making Jade acutely aware of the strength in his arms and shoulders. "We set up in the sunroom," he explained, leading the way. "Plenty of natural light, and easy to clean if we make a mess." The sunroom turned out to be a stunning glass-enclosed space overlooking a tiered garden and infinity pool, with the city of Oak Ridge spread out in the valley below. A large table had been covered with plastic sheeting in preparation for their pottery session. "This is quite a view," Jade managed, setting down her supplies. "It's why I bought the place," Lucas admitted. "After Anna died, Sophie and I needed a fresh start, somewhere peaceful but not isolated." Sophie tugged at Jade's sleeve. "I'll show you where to wash your hands. Dad had the kitchen stocked with snacks too." As Sophie led her through the house, Jade caught glimpses of tastefully decorated rooms that somehow managed to be both luxurious and livable. Family photos lined the hallways, Lucas and Sophie at various ages, and occasionally a beautiful blonde woman who must have been Anna. The kitchen was a chef's dream of stainless steel and marble, with a center island laden with fruit, cheese, and pastries. "Dad went a little overboard," Sophie confided. "He said creative work requires proper fuel." Jade smiled, touched by the thoughtfulness. "He's absolutely right about that." When they returned to the sunroom, Lucas had finished setting up the wheel and was examining the clay Jade had brought. "This feels different from what we use in class," he observed. "It's a higher-grade stoneware," Jade explained. "More forgiving for beginners but still capable of producing beautiful results." "I thought for Sophie's birthday we could each make a set of matching mugs perfect for hot chocolate together on winter mornings." Sophie clapped her hands. "That sounds amazing. Can we start now?" The next 3 hours passed in a blur of creativity, laughter, and increasingly clay-covered participants. Jade demonstrated the techniques for pulling handles and attaching them to cylinder forms, guiding both Sophie and Lucas through the process. To her surprise, Lucas proved to be a natural at the wheel. His large hands, once he learned to control his strength, shaped the clay with unexpected precision. "You're sure you've never done this before?" Jade asked, watching him center a lump of clay perfectly on his second try. Lucas shrugged, a boyish grin lighting his usually serious features. "I've always been good with my hands, just never had the opportunity to try something like this." "Dad builds things in his workshop sometimes," Sophie volunteered. "He made me a dollhouse last Christmas." Jade raised an eyebrow. "A workshop? I didn't peg you as the DIY type." "There's a lot you don't know about me, Miss Wilson," Lucas replied, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Sophie, oblivious to the moment passing between the adults, focused on painting glaze onto her now leather-hard mug. "Dad, can Miss Jade stay for dinner after we finish, please?" The question broke the tension, and Jade quickly said, "Oh, I couldn't impose, it's no imposition," Lucas interrupted. "Unless you have other plans. We're having Sophie's favorite homemade pizza." "You cook too?" Jade asked, unable to hide her surprise. "Another hidden talent," Lucas confirmed, looking slightly embarrassed. "After Anna died, I had to learn. Takeout gets old fast, especially with a 6-year-old. Jade hesitated. Dinner would cross the line from professional interaction to something more personal. Yet the hopeful look on Sophie's face, and if she was honest, the curious warmth she felt whenever Lucas revealed another unexpected facet of himself, made the decision easy. "I'd love to stay for dinner," she said, "but only if I can help with the cooking." Lucas's smile was worth any professional boundary she might be bending. "Deal." After cleaning up the pottery supplies and setting the mugs aside to dry completely before firing, they moved to the kitchen. Sophie was put in charge of toppings, carefully arranging pepperoni and vegetables on the pizza dough Lucas had prepared earlier. Jade found herself working alongside Lucas, chopping herbs for the sauce while he grated cheese. There was an easy rhythm to their movements, a comfortable silence broken occasionally by Sophie's chatter about school and friends. "So how does someone go from whatever high-powered business degree you must have to making homemade pizza dough?" Jade asked, as Lucas expertly tossed the second crust. "MBA from Wharton," he confirmed. "But my parents owned a restaurant when I was growing up. I worked there every summer from age 14 until college. Some skills you never forget." "What kind of restaurant?" "Italian-American. Nothing fancy but good, honest food." "My father believed in understanding every aspect of a business from the ground up." Lucas's expression softened with nostalgia. "He'd be amused to see me using his dough recipe to impress my daughter's pottery teacher." Jade felt her cheeks warm at the implication that he was trying to impress her. "Consider me impressed," she said lightly. "Most of my culinary expertise extends to microwaving leftovers." "We could change that," Lucas offered. "Cooking isn't so different from pottery, it's about understanding your materials and having the patience to let them transform." The parallel was astute, and Jade found herself nodding. "I never thought about it that way, but you're right." "Dad, I finished my pizza," Sophie announced, proudly displaying her creation, a smiley face formed from vegetables. "Excellent work, chef," Lucas praised. "Let's get these in the oven." Dinner was served on the terrace, with the sunset painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks over the Oak Ridge skyline. The pizza was delicious, the conversation easy, and Jade found herself relaxing completely in their company. Sophie dominated much of the discussion, peppering Jade with questions about pottery techniques and asking if they could do more advanced projects in class. Eventually, though, her energy began to wane. "Time for birthday cake," Lucas asked, noticing his daughter's drooping eyelids. Sophie perked up. "Yes, please." Lucas disappeared into the kitchen, returning moments later with a small chocolate cake adorned with a ceramic figurine of an elephant clearly store-bought, but chosen with Sophie's interests in mind. After cake and presents including a pottery wheel of Sophie's own, which prompted an excited squeal and fervent thanks, Sophie began yawning in earnest. "I think someone needs to get ready for bed," Lucas said gently. "It's been an exciting day." "But Miss Jade is still here," Sophie protested, though her eyes were heavy. "I should be going anyway," Jade said, standing to gather her purse. "Thank you for including me in your birthday celebration, Sophie. I had a wonderful time. Can you come back sometime?" Sophie asked, giving Jade an impulsive hug. Not just for pottery lessons, but just because. The question, so innocent and hopeful, caught Jade off guard. She looked to Lucas, uncertain how to respond. "I'm sure Miss Jade is very busy," Lucas began, but Jade interrupted. "I'd love to visit again, Sophie," she said softly. "If your dad doesn't mind." "I don't mind at all," Lucas replied, his voice equally soft. After Sophie reluctantly went upstairs to prepare for bed, Lucas walked Jade to her car, the night air cool around them. "Thank you for today," he said as they reached her Honda. "Sophie hasn't been this animated about a birthday since before her mother died." "She's a special girl," Jade said sincerely. "You're doing an amazing job with her." Lucas leaned against the car, studying Jade in the gentle landscape lighting. "It hasn't been easy. There are days I wonder if I'm getting it right at all." "All parents feel that way," Jade assured him, though she had only her sister's experiences to draw from. "The fact that you worry about it probably means you're doing better than you think." "That's surprisingly comforting," Lucas admitted. He hesitated, then said, "I'd like to see you again, Jade, not as Sophie's teacher or as your landlord's CEO, just as myself." The directness of the request made Jade's pulse quicken. "Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Lawrence?" "I am," he confirmed, a hint of vulnerability in his expression. "Though I understand if you think it would be inappropriate, given the circumstances." Jade considered the complications. He was her student's parent, technically her landlord, and from a world so different from hers that it seemed almost laughable to imagine them together. And yet, "I'd like that," she said, surprising herself with her certainty. "But maybe we should be discreet, at least until we see if there's really something here. For Sophie's sake." Relief and pleasure transformed Lucas's face. "Agreed. How about dinner next Friday? I know a place where we won't run into anyone from Sophie's school or the community center." "Friday works for me," Jade said, feeling a flutter of anticipation. "Text me the details." As she drove home that night, replaying the evening in her mind, Jade wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. Getting involved with Lucas Lawrence meant entering a world she knew nothing about, a world of wealth and privilege that seemed galaxies away from her modest life as a pottery teacher. But there had been moments throughout the day watching him patiently help Sophie with her clay, seeing him knead pizza dough with practiced hands, hearing the catch in his voice when he spoke of his late wife that revealed a man far more complex and genuine than his CEO title suggested. It was that man, not the millionaire, who had asked her to dinner. And it was that man she found herself increasingly drawn to, despite her better judgment. The restaurant Lucas chose for their date was an intimate French bistro tucked away in a neighboring town, far from the usual Oak Ridge social circuit. When Jade arrived, Wearing the one cocktail dress she owned, a simple black sheath she'd splurged on for her sister's wedding, Lucas was already waiting in a quiet corner booth. He stood as she approached, his appreciation evident in his gaze. "You look beautiful," he said, helping her with her chair. "That color suits you." "Thank you," Jade replied, suddenly shy. Without Sophie as a buffer, the attraction between them felt more immediate, more charged. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Lucas smiled, looking devastatingly handsome in a tailored navy suit. "I left the office early to change. Didn't want to show up in my work clothes." "Speaking of work," Jade said as the waiter poured their wine, "I signed the new lease agreement yesterday. Thank you again for being so accommodating." "I'm glad it worked out," Lucas replied. "Though I'd appreciate if we could leave business discussion at the door tonight. I'd rather focus on getting to know Jade Wilson the person, not the tenant or pottery instructor." The directness was refreshing. "Fair enough," Jade agreed. "Where should we start? How about the beginning? What made you fall in love with ceramics?" The question opened a floodgate. Jade found herself telling Lucas about discovering pottery in college, initially as an elective to fulfill her arts requirement, while she pursued a practical business degree. How the first time her hands shaped clay on the wheel, something clicked into place, a sense of purpose and joy she'd never experienced before. "I called my parents that night and told them I was changing my major to fine arts with a concentration in ceramics," Jade recalled. "My father didn't speak to me for a month." "They didn't support your decision?" Lucas asked, genuinely interested. "They wanted security for me," Jade explained. "My dad worked the same factory job for 40 years to put food on our table." The idea of choosing art over a stable career path seemed like madness to him. "And now, have they come around?" Jade smiled wryly. "They display my pieces in their living room and brag about their artist daughter to their friends. But Dad still asks when I'm going to get a real job with benefits every time I visit." Lucas nodded in understanding. "Parents want to protect their children from struggle. It's hard to watch someone you love choose a difficult path, even if it's the right one for them." "Is that something you worry about with Sophie?" Jade asked. "What she'll choose to become?" A shadow passed over Lucas's face. "After losing Anna, my perspective shifted dramatically. I just want Sophie to be healthy and happy. Everything else is negotiable." He paused, then added, "Though I admit, having the resources to support whatever path she chooses makes that easier to say." The acknowledgement of his wealth, spoken without arrogance or apology, hung between them. "Does it bother you?" Lucas asked quietly. "The disparity in our financial situations?" Jade considered the question seriously. "It would if you used it as a power differential between us," she said finally. "But so far you haven't. You've been respectful of my work and my independence. That matters more to me than what's in your bank account." Relief flickered across his features. "Good. Because I've been on dates where the only thing the woman was interested in was my net worth. It gets old fast." "Well, I'm more interested in your homemade pizza recipe," Jade teased, lightening the mood. "That's the real value proposition here." Lucas laughed, a rich sound that Jade realized she'd heard rarely. "I knew you were just using me for my culinary skills." As dinner progressed through exquisite courses, their conversation flowed naturally, from childhood memories to favorite books, from travel experiences to embarrassing mishaps. Jade discovered that beneath Lucas's controlled exterior was a man with a dry wit and thoughtful perspectives on everything from art to politics. "So how does someone go from restaurant work to founding a multi-million-dollar investment firm?" Jade asked as they shared a decadent chocolate dessert. Lucas traced the stem of his wine glass, considering his answer. "The short version is hard work, some smart choices, and a fair amount of luck. The longer version involves a business degree, 5 years at a Wall Street firm learning the ropes, and then striking out on my own with one property development that happened to pay off spectacularly well. Just like that, Jade pressed, sensing there was more to the story. Not exactly, Lucas admitted. There were plenty of setbacks and near disasters along the way. The company almost went under during the recession, but I'd built the right team and we weathered it better than most. And now you're buying up half of downtown Oak Ridge, Jade observed, keeping her tone light despite her lingering concerns about gentrification. Lucas seemed to read her thoughts. I know how it looks from the outside, he said. The big bad developer changing the character of established neighborhoods. But we try to be thoughtful about it, preserving architectural elements, supporting local businesses where we can. Like mine, Jade couldn't resist asking. Your studio would have caught my attention even without the Sophie connection, Lucas assured her. JW Ceramics is exactly the kind of creative enterprise that makes neighborhoods vibrant, but I can't deny that knowing you personally made me look more closely at the situation. His honesty was disarming. Well, whatever the reason, I'm grateful, Jade said. That studio is my life's work. I know, Lucas replied simply. It shows in everything you do there. When the check came, Lucas waved away Jade's attempt to contribute. Please, he said. This was my invitation. Jade acquiesced, recognizing that his gesture wasn't about flaunting wealth but simple courtesy. Next time can be my treat, she said, though it might be more along the lines of the diner on Main Street. I love that diner, Lucas surprised her by saying. Best blueberry pancakes in the county. Outside the restaurant, standing close in the cool evening air, the chemistry between them was undeniable. Lucas stepped closer, his hand coming up to gently tuck a strand of hair behind Jade's ear. I've wanted to do that all evening, he murmured. Just that? Jade asked, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. Lucas smiled, leaning down until their faces were inches apart. No, not just that. His lips met hers in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened, sending sparks of desire shooting through Jade's body. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer, and Jade found herself responding with equal fervor, her hands sliding up to his shoulders. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since I watched you teach Sophie how to center clay, he confessed. Something about your patience, your hands. Jade smiled, feeling wonderfully lightheaded. And here I thought you were just being a supportive parent. That too, he assured her. But I'm also a man who recognizes an extraordinary woman when he meets one. The drive home was filled with a giddy anticipation of possibilities. They agreed to see each other again the following week, a more casual date, perhaps a hike in the hills above Oak Ridge where Sophie could join them. I don't want to rush things with her, Lucas explained as he walked Jade to her car. She's attached to you already as her teacher. Moving to something more will require some adjustment. Jade appreciated his thoughtfulness. We'll take it at whatever pace feels right for all of us, she promised. Sophie's well-being comes first. With a final, lingering kiss goodnight, they parted. As Jade drove home, she couldn't help but marvel at the unexpected turn her life had taken. A month ago, she'd been worried about losing her studio and struggling to make ends meet. Now she was dating Lucas Lawrence, millionaire, devoted father, and a man whose kiss made her feel like she was spinning on her pottery wheel. Centered yet exhilaratingly free. Over the next few weeks, Jade and Lucas carefully navigated the evolving dimensions of their relationship. Their second date was indeed a family hike, with Sophie chattering excitedly between them as they explored woodland trails. Their third was another dinner, followed by a moonlit walk along the riverfront. By their fourth date, Sophie had begun asking pointed questions about why her pottery teacher was spending so much time with them outside of class. "You like my dad?" she asked Jade directly one Saturday after pottery class, while Lucas was paying the community center fees. Jade knelt to Sophie's level, deciding honesty was the best approach. "I do like your dad," she confirmed. "He's a kind, intelligent man who cares very much about you. Would it bother you if I spent more time with both of you?" Sophie considered this seriously. "Would you be like my mom?" The question struck Jade like a physical blow. "Oh, Sophie, no one could replace your mom," she said gently. "From everything your dad has told me, she was an amazing woman who loved you very much." "I know," Sophie said, her voice small. "I just don't remember her very well anymore. Sometimes I have to look at pictures to see her face." Jade's heart ached for the child. "That must be very hard," she said. "But you know what? I bet your mom would be so proud of the wonderful girl you've become. And I'm not trying to take her place. I'd just like to be your friend if that's okay with you." Sophie nodded slowly. "I think that would be okay. Dad smiles more when you're around." "Does he?" Jade asked, touched by the observation. "MMHMM. And he doesn't work late as much anymore." Lucas returned before Jade could respond, but the conversation stayed with her. That evening, she shared Sophie's questions with Lucas as they sat on his terrace after Sophie had gone to bed. "I was wondering when she'd bring that up," Lucas sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's been asking more questions about Anna lately. I think seeing us together has stirred up some feelings." "Are we moving too fast?" Jade asked, worried. "The last thing I want is to confuse her or cause her pain." Lucas reached for Jade's hand, entwining their fingers. "I don't think that's it. Sophie genuinely likes you, that's clear to anyone who sees you together. I think she's just trying to understand what your role in our lives might be." "And what is my role?" Jade asked softly, realizing they hadn't explicitly defined their relationship yet. Lucas's gaze was steady, certain. "I was hoping you might be willing to find out with me, because the truth is, Jade, I'm falling in love with you. I wasn't looking for this, wasn't sure I'd ever want it again after losing Anna, but here we are." The declaration took Jade's breath away. "Lucas." "You don't have to say anything now," he quickly added. "I know it's soon. We've only been dating a month, but I wanted you to know where I stand." Jade squeezed his hand, her heart full. "I'm falling for you too," she admitted, "and it terrifies me. Not just because of Sophie, though that's part of it, but because our worlds are so different. Sometimes I wonder if you'll wake up one day and realize you could have someone from your social circle, someone who fits more naturally into your life." "Is that what you think?" Lucas asked, sounding genuinely surprised. "That I'm looking for someone who fits into some predetermined space?" He shook his head. "Jade, I fell in love with you precisely because you're unlike anyone in my usual circles. You're passionate about your art, dedicated to your students, unimpressed by wealth or status. So my complete lack of sophistication is charming," Jade teased, trying to lighten the moment. "Your authenticity is what's charming," Lucas corrected. "Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants something: connections, investments, status by association. And I just want clay and a working kiln," Jade laughed. "Exactly," Lucas said, his expression softening. "Though I hope you might want me too." "I think that could be arranged," Jade murmured, leaning in to kiss him. As autumn deepened into winter, their relationship solidified into something neither had expected, but both treasured deeply. Jade spent increasing amounts of time at Lucas's home, helping Sophie with art projects, cooking meals together, or simply enjoying quiet evenings by the fireplace while Sophie did homework or read books nearby. At Lucas's encouragement, Jade began focusing more energy on her own ceramic art, creating pieces for an upcoming gallery show. He converted one of his unused guest rooms into a small studio space where she could work when inspired, complete with a professional wheel and private kiln. "This isn't necessary," Jade protested when he first showed her the space. "My studio downtown is perfectly adequate." "Consider it selfish on my part," Lucas replied. "This way you have no excuse not to stay late." The truth was, Jade was staying over more nights than not, though always being careful to leave before Sophie woke if she had. They were still navigating the delicate balance of building their relationship while respecting Sophie's adjustment process. In early December, as the holiday season approached, Lucas invited Jade to accompany them to the annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony in the town square, a public outing that would essentially announce their relationship to the Oak Ridge community. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" Jade asked, knowing that many of Lucas's business associates and Sophie's school friends would be present. "Once we go public, there's no turning back." "I've never been more sure of anything," Lucas replied, drawing her close, "unless you're having second thoughts." "Not about us," Jade assured him. "Just about the scrutiny. I've seen how people look at you when we're out together wondering what the Millionaire developer is doing with the pottery teacher." Lucas frowned. "Has someone said something to you?" "Not directly," Jade said. "But I overheard some mothers at Sophie's school pickup last week. They seemed surprised by your choice." "My choice?" Lucas repeated, his tone hardening. "As if you were an item on a menu. That's absurd." "It's human nature," Jade said pragmatically. "People gossip, especially when they don't understand something." "Well, they'd better get used to not understanding," Lucas stated firmly, "because I'm not going anywhere and neither are you, I hope." The tree lighting ceremony was as magical as Sophie had promised, with carolers, hot chocolate stands, and twinkling lights transforming the town square into a winter wonderland. As predicted, their appearance together, Lucas with his arm around Jade's waist, Sophie skipping between them, generated curious glances and whispered conversations. But the reactions that mattered most were positive. Sophie's teacher from school stopped to chat warmly with them. Several of Jade's pottery students offered genuine congratulations. Even Mr. Harrigan, Jade's former landlord, commented that they made a fine-looking family. The word family lingered in Jade's mind long after the event, as she and Lucas sat together on his sofa, watching the flames dance in the fireplace. Sophie had fallen asleep during the drive home and was now tucked safely in her bed. "You're quiet tonight," Lucas observed, stroking Jade's hair. "Everything okay, just thinking," Jade replied, leaning into his touch. "About what Mr. Harrigan said about us looking like a family." Lucas's hand paused momentarily. "Does that idea bother you?" "No," Jade said thoughtfully. "That's what surprised me. It doesn't bother me at all. In fact, it feels right somehow." The relief on Lucas's face was palpable. "I've been thinking the same thing," he admitted. "Watching you with Sophie, seeing how naturally you've become part of our lives, it's like finding a missing piece we didn't know was gone." Jade sat up, turning to face him. "Lucas, are we talking about what I think we're talking about? Because I don't want to presume I love you," Lucas interrupted, taking her hands in his. "I want to build a life with you if you'll have us, both of us." Tears welled in Jade's eyes. "I love you too," she whispered. "And Sophie, I've grown to love her as if she were my own." "So is that a yes?" Lucas asked, a smile breaking across his face. "To whatever future we create together?" "Yes," Jade laughed through her tears. "Absolutely yes." They sealed the promise with a kiss that held all the certainty of their shared future, a future neither had anticipated, when Sophie first joined Jade's pottery class 6 months earlier. Christmas morning found the three of them gathered around Lucas's fireplace, still in pajamas, surrounded by torn wrapping paper and discarded bows. Sophie was ecstatic over her gifts, especially the professional-grade pottery tools Jade had selected specifically for her developing skills. "There's one more gift," Lucas announced after the main presents had been opened. He retrieved a small box from behind the tree and handed it to Jade. "This one's special." Jade unwrapped the package with trembling fingers, somehow knowing what she might find inside. The velvet box contained not a ring, as she had half expected, but a delicate clay pendant hanging from a silver chain. The pendant was in the shape of an elephant, Sophie's favorite, but with artistic touches that were unmistakably created by a child's hand. "Sophie made it," Lucas explained, his voice thick with emotion. "In a special class at the community center, she asked the instructor to help her fire and glaze it. I wanted to make something pretty for you," Sophie said, watching anxiously for Jade's reaction. "Dad said artists appreciate handmade gifts the most." "It's the most beautiful necklace I've ever seen," Jade said sincerely, tears springing to her eyes. "Would you help me put it on?" As Sophie carefully fastened the clasp behind Jade's neck, Lucas reached into his pocket and produced a second, smaller box. "And this one," he said quietly, "is from me." This time, the box did contain a ring, a stunning solitaire diamond set in platinum, elegant in its simplicity. "Jade Wilson," Lucas began, dropping to one knee before her. "When you came into our lives, I was just a single dad trying to connect with his daughter through a pottery class. I never imagined I'd find the love of my life covered in clay and teaching patience through art." Sophie watched with wide eyes, her hands clasped together in excitement. "You've brought light and laughter back into our home," Lucas continued. "You've shown Sophie what it means to pursue passion and creativity. And you've shown me that it's possible to love again, even when you think your heart is too broken to try." He opened the box, the diamond catching the morning light. "Will you marry me? Will you officially become the family we already feel like?" Jade looked from Lucas to Sophie, who was practically vibrating with hopeful anticipation, and back to the man she'd come to love so deeply. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly, "Yes, I will marry you." Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms for a kiss that promised forever. Sophie launched herself into the embrace, creating a family hug that felt like coming home. Later that evening, after Sophie had gone to bed, exhausted from the day's excitement, Jade and Lucas sat together on the terrace, wrapped in blankets against the winter chill, admiring the stars above. "I never thought this would be my life," Jade mused, looking down at the ring sparkling on her finger. "Teaching pottery to a sweet girl, falling in love with her dad, becoming part of a ready-made family. It feels like a dream." "If it is a dream, I don't want to wake up," Lucas replied, pulling her closer. "Though I should probably confess something." Jade looked at him quizzically. "What's that?" "Remember when Sophie first joined your class? It wasn't entirely coincidental," Lucas admitted. "Her school art teacher mentioned your community center program, and when I looked you up online to learn more about the instructor, I was intrigued." "Lucas Lawrence," Jade gasped in mock outrage. "Are you telling me you deliberately enrolled your daughter in my class because you were attracted to her teacher?" "Not exactly," he laughed. "Sophie genuinely wanted to try pottery. But I might have volunteered to drop her off that first day instead of sending my assistant, just to meet the beautiful woman from the website photo." "So you had ulterior motives all along," Jade teased, poking him in the ribs. "Just good business sense," Lucas defended himself. "I recognized a worthwhile investment opportunity." "Oh, is that what I am? An investment?" Lucas's expression turned serious as he cupped her face in his hands. You, Jade Wilson, soon to be Jade Lawrence, are the best decision I ever made. Well, second best, after adopting this little furball. On cue, the rescue kitten they'd surprised Sophie with that morning leapt onto the terrace table, demanding attention. They'd named her Clay, at Sophie's insistence that their family needed a pottery-related pet. As Jade watched Lucas gently stroke the kitten's fur, she marveled at how completely her life had transformed in just 6 months. From struggling artist worried about losing her studio to fiancée of a man whose generosity matched his wealth, future mother to a child who'd already claimed a piece of her heart. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "About how sometimes the most unexpected turns in life lead exactly where you're meant to be," Jade replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. "And how grateful I am that you walked into my pottery class that day." "I'm the grateful one," Lucas murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Who knew pottery lessons could lead to forever? As they sat together under the winter stars, planning their future and dreaming of the days to come, Jade knew with absolute certainty that she had found her home not in a place, but in the hearts of the man and child who had become her family. Sophie's clay elephant pendant rested against her heart, a tangible reminder that sometimes love comes shaped differently than expected, but is no less perfect for its unique form.